Fabulous. Well, it's a really warm welcome to all of you to today's event. My name is Tuve Hubbard and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Sustainability Programme Manager at EAUC, which stands for the Environmental Association of Universities and Colleges. We're a charity and a membership body based in the UK with a mission to put sustainability at the heart of post-secondary education. And I'm also joined by my colleague Matt Woodthorpe, who's the Scotland Programme Manager, and will be supporting with the technical delivery of today's event. We're really delighted that so many of you are joining us for today's event to mark COP29 Education Day and also the 10th anniversary year of the International Green Gown Awards. As we speak, world leaders and decision makers are gathered at COP in Baku, Azerbaijan, to discuss global commitments to reducing carbon emissions and tackling climate change. And on this education themed day at COP, we wanted to host an event that spotlights the critical role that the higher education sector plays in meeting the challenges we face as a planet, with a specific focus on the topic of increasing learner access to green jobs. So the purpose of today's event is to unpack some of the key themes and enablers for the green jobs revolution with you, whilst also providing some fantastic, tangible real-world examples of innovative and effective practice that is already underway in this space. So before we get started, I just wanted to highlight that we'll be recording today's session to share afterwards with all of you, along with the PowerPoint slides, and we will also share any links or documents that get referenced throughout the call as well. As are so many of you joining us today, we encourage you to participate using the Zoom chat function. So if this isn't already on the right-hand side of your Zoom window, if you hover and look at the bottom panel that appears, you should find a chat button, which should open it up for you. And if you haven't already, please do introduce yourself in the chat. We're loving finding out where you're all joining us from today. And we should have your view settings automatically configured so that you'll see the speakers. But if at any point you end up in gallery view, if you go to the top right-hand side of your screen, you'll find speaker view, and this will ensure the best viewing experience for you. So, as I mentioned, we're celebrating the 10th anniversary year of the International Green Gown Awards. This is an annual award scheme that celebrates exceptional sustainability projects by universities and colleges, and any university or college can apply worldwide for free. The awards usually open for applications in around January every year. EAUC deliver the International Green Gown Awards in association with our awards sponsor, Allianz Global Investors. And regional Green Gown Awards are also available in the UK and Ireland, delivered by us, and in Australasia, delivered by our partner ACTS. The awards are endorsed by the United Nations Environment Programme and a range of other international networks. You can find out a bit more about the International Green Gown Awards by visiting our website or by following the Green Gown Awards on X or LinkedIn. So here's a brief outline of what we're going to cover in today's session. So I will be chatting first with my co-host Diane to define green jobs and frame some of the key themes for today's session. We'll then be joined by our fantastic speaker lineup, who'll be sharing more about their award-winning projects. Firstly, we'll hear from Kevin Cole, who's the head of SMUX at Singapore Management University. We'll also be hearing from Xavier Baker, who's Civic Engagement and Anti-Racism Strategy Manager at the University of the West of England. And finally, we'll be hearing from Associate Professor Alex Bornber, who's the Director of Teaching and Learning at the Transdisciplinary School of the University of Technology, Sydney. After our spotlight talks, we'll move on to the question and answer portion of the session, where Diane and I will select some of the questions you've been asking to ask the speaker panel. So please do share any questions you have for the speakers in the Zoom chat as we go along. So I thought it would be useful to attempt to define what a green job is, first of all. And I've taken this definition from the Green Careers Guide that was developed by EAUC Scotland, which has been one of our most accessed resources. And whilst some of the links and information that are in the guide are very much dependent on the Scottish and UK and Ireland context. The document also provides a really useful framework around green jobs more generally, which may be of interest to you. So we'll make sure to share links in the chat afterwards. Broadly, we can define green jobs as those that help to benefit the environment, generally by protecting, enhancing or conserving it. And then we can further split that down into green jobs that help us to reach net zero and reverse the nature crisis. There are also jobs and roles that help to change behaviours and systems to become greener. And this might include everything from green tourism and hospitality to the role that I know many of you play as educators. We can also consider green enabling jobs, which may not require in-depth environmental knowledge and skills, but cover a range of roles from administration to HR to marketing that contribute to the green goals of a particular employer. So I think on this basis, we can absolutely bust the myth that green jobs are simply just about being outdoors in every kind of weather, or that they exclusively involve professional qualifications in science, technology, engineering and maths. In fact, if the workforce of today and tomorrow is to meet the significant environmental challenges faced by the planet and build a sustainable future, there are a really diverse range of skills that we're going to need to achieve this, from general sustainability knowledge to very specific technical expertise to transferable skills like communication and innovation. Some green jobs might have labels like environmental or sustainability attached to them, whereas others may have no obvious wording in their title, but will still be absolutely green jobs at their heart. That's an attempt at a definition. And the truth is, I think our definition is likely to evolve as the workforce evolves in the future. So if anyone has anything they disagree with or would add to this definition, do shout in the chat. Without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and introduce my co-host for today's session, Diane. So Diane is the head of impact investing at Allianz Global Investors and is responsible for the impact strategy and management activities across the company's private markets platform. As well as being an Asia Global Fellow of the University of Hong Kong, Diane was named as one of the 50 top influencers in sustainable private markets. She's a proud advocate for sustainability, and I'm also really looking forward to the business perspective she'll bring to today's session. So without further ado, Diane, I wondered if you could start by briefly introducing your role and why sustainability matters to you.
Thank you so much, Tuve. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. It's really great to see the attendance. This is the third year we've been partnering with Green Gown Awards. We found it to be truly inspirational. This year we were also on the judging panel to see all of the ideas around sustainability that education institutions are bringing to the fore. So very happy to be here. So maybe just a very quick background on Allianz Global Investors for those who don't know us. We're an asset manager that cuts across globally in terms of operations. We provide investment solutions in both public and private markets. And sustainability is absolutely at the core of everything we do. So from creating investment solutions that can meet our clients' sustainability and returns objectives, to how we engage with our underlying portfolio of investments in terms of sustainability and impact issues, is really at the heart of how we operate. My team and I, as Tuve mentioned, we're in the impact strategy team. And what that essentially means is that we work with portfolio managers in private markets. So whether it's private debt or private equity solutions that we are creating and providing to our clients, to really embed impact at each stage of the investment process. So for impact investment strategies within private markets, we focus on channeling investments towards companies that are providing solutions to environmental and societal challenges in a measurable way and in a positive way. And that's what me and my team does. We make sure that we're integrating impact into each stage of the investment decision-making process, and that we're demonstrating to our investors how these investments are actually making the world better. I think in terms of the impact investing size of the market currently is about 1.3 trillion to date. But as you all know, there's a huge financing gap for us to actually achieve the UN SDGs. So hopefully we're playing a small part in helping finance entrepreneurs and their solutions, which could really matter to society in terms of environmental and social outcomes.
Fantastic, thank you. And so the focus of today's session is really on how universities and colleges can build more inclusive pathways into green careers for all learners, not just a few. And we know that there are many barriers to green jobs. It has historically been quite a gate-kept space, and that the green workforce is not diverse or fully representative, often at the cost of excluding people from traditionally marginalised communities. That obviously differs in terms of context across the world. But for example, in the UK, we know that sustainability professionals are the second least diverse after farming, racially diverse after farming, I should say. So why does it matter that we increase diversity and representation within the green workforce of the future?
Absolutely. I think inclusivity is so important for a number of reasons. I think the predominant one is that marginalized and vulnerable groups are the ones who are most affected or disproportionately affected by climate change, whether we're talking about climate disasters or whether we're talking about, for example, the harm of pollution. Is the marginalized vulnerable groups that are bearing the brunt of most of what's happening within climate change. And so I think without further inclusivity and diversity within the green workforce, we won't be able to come up with the solutions that actually meet the needs of those groups. And when we think about diversity, I think, Tuve, you gave a great introduction of the diversity of green jobs that are available, whether it's around policy making, whether it's those technical solutions that are necessary and need to be affordable to marginalized groups, or whether it's advocacy, communications, marketing to raise the issues and awareness around the needs. I think that's where the diversity really helps, because you need someone who have experienced and know the backgrounds and requirements to actually make change. I think the second piece is that we are at a huge skills shortage when it comes to the green skills and green jobs to actually transition our industry and economy towards net zero. And as you put it, there's so many skills that are involved, right? Like from engineering skills to AI, digital, finance, change behavior, marketing, etc. So I think in order to actually fill those skill shortages, we do actually have an imperative to actually be more inclusive. Otherwise, our economy won't have those skill sets in order to transition.
Absolutely. And we know that diverse workforces are more resilient, more productive, more impactful. So it's an essential part of the future we need to create. I know that you're particularly passionate about encouraging women into green careers. So I wondered if you could talk a bit more about the key barriers that you think exist for women in particular in accessing and developing a green career.
Absolutely. I think, the most cited reason for women having fewer maybe or smaller representation in green careers, but not the only reason, is the gap in STEM, right? We've all talked about science, technology, education, math, engineering, maths. And I think there is, we do see a gap, for example, in the UK, where only 18% of undergraduates in those type of subjects are women. But by and large, these are not the only reasons for why we see that access in terms of barrier. Some of them are specific to the sustainability sector, but a lot of them are quite general in terms of those barriers to access. So I think a recent study by Nesta, for example, looked at the differences in self-perception within genders. And even for women who actually are qualified for either STEM or non-STEM green jobs, they still feel that they're not qualified enough relative to their male counterparties when they're applying for those jobs. So there's definitely a self-perception bias there that we need to address. I think secondly, and again, this is more of a broad application rather than just in the green skill space, I think there is still a lot to do for employers to include flexibility in terms of the work environment, the work culture. to ensure that women continue to progress to senior levels in the organization, rather than the attrition that sometimes we see across industries. I think finally is awareness raising, because we do see that women have perhaps a lower level of awareness of what a green job is in recent surveys relative to male counterparts. And the perception that this is outdoor work, this is all about engineering. Of course, we're trying to make sure that we demystify that. And I think the more we are able to use initiatives like Green Gown Awards to showcase the diversity of approaches to sustainability, the more we can attract women to this industry. I think maybe one final point on that is that I thought it was interesting that studies always show that the motivation for women joining a green job is very much to do with the social benefit, societal benefit that these jobs have, right? So I think it's also important for us as employers, excuse me, to highlight the societal impacts along with environmental impacts of these jobs to really entice women to apply for these careers.
Absolutely. And I think that idea of the perceptions that people have around what a green job is and who it's for, I think will come to the fore through some of our discussion with our speakers later as well. So finally, we know that there's an upscale challenge for the sector. So recent LinkedIn research showed that by 2050, there'll be twice as many jobs requiring green skills as people qualified. And that's if today's trends continue. And that research was very much focused on that first bucket of what we might consider the net zero and nature emergency jobs alone. So we're going to have a situation where demand may be outstripping supply. And one of the ways that institutions can help to address that gap that may emerge is developing partnerships with employers to provide clearer pathways for learners into green jobs. So I wondered if you could share from a corporate business perspective what works well in terms of forging partnerships with sectors like the higher education sector. And do you have any recommendations for universities and colleges on how to do this successfully?
Absolutely. I think it's super important that connectivity between industry and education institutions. I think, first of all, making sure that any opportunities around internships and work experience is widely spread, that we make sure that that information is flowing to a diverse number of institutions and through different channels, I think is super important, because otherwise, you could have that selection bias in terms of where those applicants come from. So I think that's very important for us to work together on. I think secondly, what I've seen institutions do, which has been really great for their students, is to invite back a diversity of alumni to talk about their various roles and really demystifying that process of how to apply, what are the skills involved, how do you get those skills when you're still a student and doing your degree, because there's so many different networking opportunities and ways to enhance your skill set. But unless someone provides a little bit of guidance as to how to focus your time, sometimes it's hard to know what to attend, who to meet in order to build those networks and skills. So I think that's been really important. And it's also from some of those individual alumni relationships that I see then more systematic relationships being built between a corporate and an education institution, because there's a personal introduction that's really tangible and a champion pushing for those relationships. So I think in terms of what I've seen done at our own organization, we've done a number of internships and work experiences, cutting across a very diverse range of students. We've done workshops in Singapore, Hong Kong, Germany, really trying to get together groups of students from diverse backgrounds and getting our colleagues, a wide range of colleagues, to really give a life in the day in the life of type of experience, because it's maybe not obvious sometimes how finance can play a role in sustainability and how green skills are relevant. So I think we try and also give those details in terms of how to apply, what skills to build up, And I think things like CV workshops are often quite helpful and popular amongst the students who attend some of these workshops, because it is transferable, tangible skills that we are, as corporates, can help students gain and tangibly help them to apply for the next opportunity and how to do interviews, etc. So I think all those are maybe sort of more granular things that we can do. And then obviously there's initiatives like the Green Gown Awards, which, from a sort of broader sustainability awareness raising perspective, that we've been very happy to be proud of as a corporate.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Diane. That's been really, really useful, and I hope that's helped to frame some of the key concepts for the session for you all. I'm now going to hand over to Kevin, who's head of SMUX at Singapore Management University, and Kevin's going to be sharing more about their award-winning and pioneering SMUX project, which was the winner of the Next Generation Learning and Skills category at this year's International Green Gown Awards.
Right. Thank you, Tove. Can you hear me? All right, good. So hello from Singapore. My name is Kevin Koh, and I am the head of SMUX at Singapore Management University. Could I have the slide, please? Thank you. So today I'm excited to share with you how SMUX is contributing to the green economy and fostering a sustainable future. So SMUX is an experiential learning framework that bridges the gap between academia and industry. So by collaborating with various industry partners, we provide students with real-world projects that address societal and business challenges, including sustainability. So the students over one academic term will get to partner with industry partners as well as the faculty in the classroom, where they come together to innovate solutions to a real-world challenge. Next slide, please. One of our key initiatives is the integration of green skills into our curriculum. So we have launched several courses and projects that focus on sustainability and environmental impact. For instance, our collaboration with industry partners on projects related to renewable energy, waste management, and sustainable urban planning have provided students with hands-on experience in green technologies and practices. At SMUX, we are dedicated to ensuring that our green job initiatives are inclusive and accessible to all students. This program is available to undergraduates, postgraduate, adult learners, and even exchange students at SMU. So each project team is highly diverse, comprising students from various disciplines, collaborating to solve real-world challenges. The SMUX program also partners with several overseas universities, enabling their students to work alongside ours on projects. This collaboration extends the opportunity for experiential learning to a broader student body. To ensure inclusivity, students requiring financial assistance to participate in our SMUX overseas program may apply for 3 awards specifically designed for this purpose. Throughout our journey, we have learned the importance of building impactful partnerships with industry. By collaborating with companies that are leaders in sustainability, we have been able to provide students with valuable insights and experiences that prepare them for green careers. And one of the challenges we faced was ensuring that our projects were not only educational, because it's part of an academic achievement, but also had a tangible impact on the environment. Now we overcame this. We overcame this by setting clear goals and metrics for each project, ensuring that they contribute to our sustainability objectives. So in conclusion, SMUX is dedicated to equipping our students with the skills and knowledge needed to thrive in green jobs. By fostering innovation, inclusivity, and collaboration, we are paving the way for a sustainable future. So thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to any questions you might have later.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Kevin. I'm now going to pass over to Xavier. Xavier is the Civic Engagement and Anti-Racism Strategy Manager at the University of the West of England, also known as UWE Bristol. And their Green Skills programme increased access to jobs, training and business opportunities for Black, Asian and minoritized young people in South West England, and was a large institution winner in 2023 in the Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Strategy, inclusion category. So over to you, Xavier.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Xavier Baker, and it's a pleasure to be with you today. So in this short presentation, I'm going to give you a quick overview of the Green Skills for Jobs and Entrepreneurship programme that I was lucky enough to be part of delivering for 2 years as the mentor and cohort manager for the programme. I'm going to kind of share that overview and give some highlights of the programme's impact, and also share some insights that I hope that you find useful and go on to inform any work that you might do in this space. Could I have the next slide, please? So Green Skills for Jobs and Entrepreneurship was a unique and transformational programme that was led by UWE Bristol, and it was designed to support young people from age 18 to 28 from Black, Asian and racially minoritized backgrounds who are living in the West of England region. And it was all about supporting those groups to have access to opportunities in the sustainability sector. The project launched at the start of 2022 in response to as it was a response to the need for kind of recovery following the pandemic, and also the combined authority had issued a report saying that they felt that there was a need for 50,000 new jobs in the region by 2030. So we were there to try and help meet those ambitious net zero targets. The key objectives of the programme were to support that just and inclusive transition regionally, to also help close the skills gap between those jobs and young people. And as Tuve mentioned, there's a severe lack of racial diversity in the sustainability in environmental careers. So we were there to try and tackle that underrepresentation. I'd also add here that the programme was designed to empower those young people with the skills, knowledge, insights, industry contacts to ensure that firstly they weren't left behind by investments in the space, and also to help them to kind of find out more and genuinely consider careers in the green sector. Next slide, please. So this is a kind of the programme was delivered across stages, 2 stages. So the first stage is kind of is an outline on this slide. So the learners would come in for 8 days of skills training, and we mapped the different themes that were covered to the high growth areas of the sustainability sector based on kind of market research. So these range from renewable energy and built environment to innovation and sustainable entrepreneurship. We finished each cohort, so we ran 7 cohorts in total. We finished each cohort with a kind of a big celebration day where the morning was spent looking at kind of next steps and employability skills, and the afternoon was like a big networking opportunity. We invited lots of industry and community leaders to come and meet the young people and think about how they might be able to support them moving forward. Sitting alongside that were all the learners had access to one-to-one culturally sensitive coaching and mentoring, which was my role, and I had another colleague who was also a mentor and cohort manager. So there was this kind of wraparound support that we offered to the individuals on the programme. Next slide, please. So after stage 1, stage 2 provided each learner with the chance to really embed their knowledge and kind of had the chance to apply the skills that they've been developing in stage 1 to one of 4 pathways depending on their interests, and so that they could do a paid internship for 6 weeks with a local business or organization, a research internship with an academic at the university. We were able to cover the cost of further training opportunities, or they could access business incubation support. Next slide, please. So there's a lot on this slide. I'm just going to pick out some of the kind of key bits of impact. So we supported 110 young people within 2 years that the program ran. 80% of the learners completed both stage 1 and a stage 2 pathway opportunity. Loads and loads of learners have now gone on to access permanent employment in relevant organizations and sectors. So young people working in forestry, in food waste, in social well-being, sustainability consultancies, construction, engineering, and so on. We brought on a lot of new suppliers into the university, and of course we won a national and then international Green Gown Award. So shout out to the AUC for that. Thank you. Next slide, please. Again, in the interest of time, I'm going to just pick out a couple of the kind of key lessons that we learned. One was around the fact that we had to be really principled in ensuring that equity sat at the heart of everything that we did. So I guess to kind of explain that, every learner was remunerated for their time on the program. So every learner was paid a real living wage to attend the 8 days of skills training. Speaking to Diane's point earlier about internships, all of the internships were fully paid as well, so that they were accessible. Transport costs were covered, lunches were provided, so that we were removing as many barriers to access as possible for young people to take part. We also kind of updated our recruitment processes to make sure that we weren't just reaching students, but we were reaching people out in the community, because we were funded by community renewal funding. So we held information sessions, we partnered with support workers, probation service, things like that. And I'm conscious of time, so I'll just make one last point that the sustainability of funding was always our biggest concern for the programme, and we had to scale back our delivery between the first year and the second year. And as we approached the second year, we really struggled to secure further investment for the programme, and we were forced to suspend. So this was a fantastic programme that was doing really well, receiving international attention, and yet we weren't able to continue going. And I think that speaks to the cost of addressing inequality is often really high, and a lot of funding opportunities have a focus on value for money, but I don't think those two things always sit very well together. The program was expensive for a very good reason, and it had amazing outcomes. And the last point is that there's also been quite inconsistent funding strategies around net zero transition. So it was a really high, it still is, and was a really high priority at the start, but it's harder to kind of see how those opportunities for funding, specifically around skills, are going to be there. Are there. And we did consider things like corporate partnerships, but again, that kind of value for money question kept coming up, and that meant we weren't able to continue. But I hope you found taking away some insights from this presentation. Lastly, there was a slide there with lots of different organisations that supported the programme, and just wanted to prove that this type of initiative requires a whole economy effort. But yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Xavier. And that point around, if we have this big green jobs upskilling challenge ahead of us, how do we create the kind of consistent funding mechanisms that enable a consistent approach and avoid that kind of boom and bust type funding that is the reality of what I know a lot of the higher education sector faces. So thank you very much. I'm now going to pass over to Alex. So Alex is Associate Professor and Director of Teaching and Learning at the Transdisciplinary School of the University of Technology in Sydney. Alex will be sharing more about their innovative and collaborative industry project for students, which received both a regional Australasian award as well as winning the Next Generation Learning and Skills category at the 2022 International Green Gown Awards. So over to you.
Thanks, Tuve. Yes, I am the Director of Teaching and Learning for the Transdisciplinary School at the University of Technology, Sydney, or UTS. And I guess when I think about breaking barriers, it's very much around breaking barriers between the different disciplines and particularly between the different silos that often exist within universities. So I was very interested to hear Diane's point at the beginning, talking about all the different disciplines that have an opportunity to contribute to solving sustainability challenges. Engineering, AI, finance, behavioural change, marketing, and we're very much interested in how all of those different disciplines can contribute, and others as well, of course. Things like ecology, some of the social sciences, humanities, design. But also how we can break down the barriers between those different disciplines. And that's really the origin story of where our school came from, and the program that we put in for the Green Gown Award in 2022. So, we really think of this idea of transdisciplinary as being about drawing on the strengths of all the different disciplines, but also breaking down the barriers between them so it's easier to collaborate, recognizing that major challenges of our age will not be solved within the boundaries of a single discipline. And the wicked problems that we face require new ways of thinking, collaboration, integration, complex problem solving. So the program that we put forward for the award is a program that started in 2014. So it's about 10 years old now. It's called the Bachelor of Creative Intelligence and Innovation. And it operates as a double degree model over 4 years. So the students who study it do what we call a core degree in a chosen field. And that might be design or business or environmental science, also communications, health. There's about 25 different options they can choose. But then what they do is they come to us throughout their winter and summer breaks. When most students are having a break, they come to us and do intensive subjects where they collaborate with other students from different disciplines, and we get them working in multidisciplinary teams, working on complex challenges that are set by external partners to the university. Across the first 3 years, they focus on different areas. So there's some subjects that talk about creative methods, others are about futuring, others are about leadership, entrepreneurship, complexity. And then in the fourth year, and this is particularly what we focused on in the Green Gown Award, we get them to work on much longer projects, and that we have generally around 35 or 40 external partners who'll set challenges for the students to work on in their fourth year. And they get about 12 or 13 weeks, and there's about 5 or 6 students per team, but they'll come from different disciplines, different faculties. And a lot of those projects are sustainability focused. There's always a strong subset of the projects every year that have a real sustainability focus. So some of the examples might include, there's corporate level projects from, the Commonwealth Bank, which is one of Australia's major banks, looking at how you can become a green and social bank. There was a project around Macquarie Group, which was looking more about sustainable offices and what the offices of the futures might look like. But then at the other end, you've also got NGOs, not-for-profits like Mission Australia, which does a lot of work with community housing. And they were looking at the role of sustainability in bonding people together within community housing. So forming sustainability interest groups and it's kind of clubs, I guess. And the students were looking at how you could instigate and promote those kinds of efforts. So a wide diversity of different partners that come to us. And then the students often work with those. I thought I might single out just a couple of examples of some past students who've gone on to have green careers through this program. So Claudia was one student who was an environmental science student, very interested in the environment, but in her fourth year actually chose a project which was all about storytelling. So she worked with an agency which had a strong focus on storytelling, and their project actually involved developing a set of cards, and they created a game that was all about instigating different ways of telling stories. And it really took her out of that comfort zone of a science degree and that deep disciplinary expertise in science to explore a different area around storytelling. And then she went on to do an honours project around rights of nature and ended up getting a job in a leading government agency through an environmental graduate program. Holly is another example. Holly did that project I mentioned earlier with the Commonwealth Bank, working on what it means to be a green and sustainable bank into the future. Moved from that sort of banking sector, decided she wanted a more NGO pathway and ended up working for the Climate Council in Australia, then a group called Next 25, which was all about thinking about the future, and then ultimately went into a research pathway. So we've had lots of different pathways, lots of different examples, and I was also reflecting on what Diane was saying about the value of having alumni coming back. That's something we always do in our fourth year program, have the alumni come back and talk to our current students. And both of those are great examples of students who've come back year after year to really share their examples of the pathways that they've followed. In terms of skills, I mentioned a few before around complexity, futuring, leadership, entrepreneurship. We have a strong focus on really the integrative skill set. So recognizing that students have this deep disciplinary knowledge from the core degrees that they do, but we're really focused on how do you integrate that. So things like collaboration, working in different teams, translating between different disciplines and understanding the fact that people use terms in different ways, and the idea of reflexivity, which is really all about unpacking your own assumptions and values and how you bring those to a project. The last thing I wanted to reflect on, I guess, is perhaps a little bit of a gap. Like we definitely approached this program from the beginning with this idea of breaking down barriers in terms of breaking down the silos and the different disciplines. But I think what we learned over time is that the diversity piece wasn't necessarily a central part in terms of marginalized groups and disadvantaged groups. So one thing that UTS has been focusing on really strongly in the last couple of years since we won that award is actually around Indigenous Australians, and recognizing that when we talk about transdisciplinarity, we're not just talking about different disciplines and how to break down the knowledges between those disciplines, but also about going beyond the disciplines. So industry knowledge and local knowledge and practice-based knowledge is really important, but Indigenous knowledges is another great example of that. And in Australia, I guess, the Indigenous people are a really central part of environmental management, particularly in terms of managing quite large areas of land, having quite an active role in things like national park co-management and things like that. But in the university sector, it's an area where Indigenous Australians have often been left out. So we've been working really strongly on that. We've got a set of Indigenous graduate attributes, which are all about making sure our students understand how to engage with Indigenous communities. But then there's also increasing the number of Indigenous students coming through UTS through various programs that help to enable more admission, but also help people to feel more at home and more comfortable in that university environment. And what couple of things we've been doing on that front is at one level, we've employed an Indigenous professor of practice, Susan Moylan-Combs, but then we've also employed an Indigenous development fellowship, created an Indigenous fellowship for a more junior academic to come through and help to mentor and educate in that space. So yeah, I'll leave it there, but those are some of the things we've been doing around that.
Fantastic. Thank you, Alex. And I think there's something really interesting in the points you're raising around earlier sort of access and inclusion programs that then enable people to get to the green jobs, because we can't assume that the green jobs is where the access and inclusion barriers start. So really interesting to see the ways that you're considering that initial access to education piece as well. I'm really happy to say that we have some time for questions. So I'm going to pass to Diane, who's going to kick us off with a question. But if you have any questions for the speakers, please do add them to the chat function, and we'll try and get through as many as possible. So over to you, Diane.
Thank you so much, Kevin, Xavier, and Alex for the wonderful presentations. I think looking at the chat that we have, one question that has come up once or twice is, again, that definitional scope around green skills, green jobs. What do we mean by that? And there's a question specifically around, well, is every job a green job? Or how do we think about, what is actually a green job, or what are maybe more powerful green jobs or more influential green jobs from the perspective of actually, influencing change. So maybe I'll put that to all three speakers to see which ones of you might want to start answering that question, because I think is at the heart of our discussion here.
I'm happy to take that first. It's interesting. It's a question we've been asked a lot, and a question is in the title of the project, so it came up a lot. And we used a very broad definition, similar to what kind of Tuve shared at the beginning. We need to be working towards a point where every job has an element of sustainability included in it. So we actually used the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals as a framework for the project. And when it came to considering speakers to bring in, or kind of whether or not we were able to fund a pathway opportunity, we then kind of used the SDGs to kind of guide us. We were also where we could try to be informed by the learners. And they really helped to challenge our perspective. So at the beginning, the program kind of had to get up and running really quickly. And we recruited people, and they started within in sometimes days of them first finding out about the project. And that meant when they were coming for 8 weeks of training, we'd only actually planned the first 2 or 3 weeks. And that meant that learners were kind of coming in saying, well, where's health in here? We haven't really spoken about health. Health is a huge sustainable issue. Where's fashion? Came up a lot. And then we were able to kind of go out and find different industry speakers that could come in and speak in those topics. We also really prioritized representation in those associates who came to deliver on the program, because it was really important to us that the young people on the program saw themselves reflected in the curriculum on the program. And the last thing I'd say as well is that we really valued different types of professionals, and so we brought in a lot of community leaders who were often excluded from so-called mainstream sustainability movements, but people who are doing really amazing work at grassroots level, which sometimes would be considered outside of the scope of a sustainable career. So to answer your question, we took a really, really holistic, broad view of what we classed as green skills or a green job.
Fantastic. Alex, Kevin, do you have anything to add to Savia's response?
Yeah, maybe I'll just add on to that. We look at it from two angles, but perhaps I could give a bit of the background to where we started. The SMUX program started in 2015 with the idea of, how do we get our students to learn about learning, right? So we inbuilt within the curriculum a framework where we get the industry to come in so that they can provide the industry exposure for our students. And so at the same time, we want our students to come up with solutions that are both practical and implementable to our industry partners. So our industry partners provide the relevance, and they are the context mentor, but they don't work alone as well. They are guided by the faculty, the professor in the classroom, who are the content mentor. So here I am trying to illustrate here, there are two approaches, right? The content and the context. And then so we started with a program with a pilot of 2 courses, 58 students. And then in 2020, we launched this Vision 2025 for the whole university. And then we bring in these graduate learning outcomes that we have. And so we map the kind of the competency that students will go through our SMUX program against the graduate learning outcomes that the university seeks to achieve. And then we have, like, for example, to answer the question about what the green skills that we have. And in 2020, I don't think we have so much more so much talk about sustainability yet. But then again, we were really thinking about, the multidisciplinary knowledge, interdisciplinary knowledge, critical thinking, problem solving, innovation, entrepreneurship skills, collaboration, leadership, communications, intercultural understanding of sustainability issues, resilience, and learning to have the ability to cope with ambiguity. Putting this all together, these are the soft skills that we have. We hope that the students will get to learn and pick up through our SMUX program. And then fast forward that to now, we are looking at over 70 SMUX courses, with 10 of them taking students overseas. We see close to more than 5,000 students in our program every year, working with about 200 industry partners in our program on a yearly basis. And so in terms of project central to each SMUX course, there is a real world project. And so that's when we expose our students to the issues of sustainability through the use of project as well. And so our students would have, for example, come up with a marketing campaign to promote the alternative meats, for example, initiative to make data centers more environmentally friendly, coming up with a business plan to establish a social enterprise so as to raise awareness of the circular economy, as well as coming up with ideas to help a local supermarket chain to reduce the waste of raw materials and food. And so this is through the projects that we have that we embed into the curriculum, that we get students a bit more acquainted and to solve real sustainability issues. The other way is through content. We do have courses that are looking at very technical skills, green skills, for example, sustainable finance, we talk about sustainable entrepreneurship, and even sustainability reporting. And we also have the sustainability management major in the business school, as well as our masters in sustainability as well. And so this is what we do through at SMU, through project and through the curriculum, that we try to provide students with inroads to the green skills as well as green job.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Kevin. I think maybe a great follow-on that, maybe for Alex, given the transdisciplinary nature of your presentation, there's a question in the chat around how marketing can help sustainability in the higher education sector. Shamalia says that most university projects in green technologies and AI and climate change in Pakistan are functioning in silos. So I wonder if, Alex, you can give your take on, how do we get the mindset around that transdisciplinary nature that's needed to really push forward with green transition? How do you actually instill that in students, and how does your course actually help to develop that transition?
Yeah, and I think it goes a bit to the previous question as well about what a green job is. I think it's, any job can be a green job if you're approaching it with the right set of values and the right mentality. And I guess marketing is a great example of that, where it's not necessarily always thought of as the pathway to a green job, and maybe something like environmental science might seem like a more obvious pathway to a green job. But what we found is that our marketing students and our business students in those collaborative teams often have a real insight into what appeals to people and what's going to make them switch to a more sustainable choice. So lots of our projects end up having that kind of business angle to them. Definitely we try to foster an entrepreneurial mindset, which is a real opportunity for students who've done marketing or done business degrees to bring some of those insights to other students who might have a deep passion for environmental issues around environmental science, or maybe some of the humanities students who've studied environmental studies, but they don't necessarily have that sense around things like behavioral change or behavioral economics in terms of what might shift people's behavior towards more sustainable practices. So lots of the projects that we end up promoting in that particular course that I mentioned do end up having a real marketing angle to them. And particularly, we've got another subject where students actually get to pick a passion project. So they don't have a project that's set by an industry partner, but they actually decide something that they're passionate about, and then they might reach out to external partners to try to explore those. And they often explore things like sustainable fashion, or tiny houses, or things that have a sustainability angle, but very much need a marketing dimension to try to actually understand what it would take to shift people's behavior around those. So yeah, marketing, I think, is a really central and often overlooked component.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Alex. I don't know, Tuve, if we have time for one final question, or we need to do wrap up given we're nearly out of time.
I think we'll head to wrap up, but we'll capture any questions from the chat, and if they've gone unanswered, I'm sure that we can share some insight afterwards. I'll just wrap up for everyone before you head onwards then. So firstly, just to say a huge thank you for joining today's event, and particular thanks to Diane, Kevin and Alex and Xavier for giving up their time. I hope you found it really inspiring and insightful session. We will make sure that we share the slides and links afterwards, and on this slide I've also included a link to a really short 5-question feedback form. We'd really appreciate your suggestions, thoughts on today's event and how we can improve or provide similar events in the future. And there's also a way that if you would prefer to have an email arrive in your inbox when the International Green Gown Awards open at the start of next year, rather than keeping an eye on LinkedIn or X, then if you use the right-hand QR code, you can go straight to a form which you can use to register to be kept up to date with international news from the EAUC. But on that note, we're bang on 11:30, so I'm going to say a huge thank you to everyone for coming today, and wishing you a really lovely rest of your day. So thank you everyone, and take care.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you.
Thank you.